Elden New World Odyssey Breath of the Wild Trigger is another... Sorry. Chrono Odyssey is an upcoming MMO, and after their closed beta test, it has sparked quite the debate as to whether or not this will be the next big MMO. My name is Sun, and in this video I will show you a set of interviews that I did to random people, while I show you footage of how I tried killing the first Chrono Gate boss at level 3 with the Swordsman class. If you look for any reviews about the game on YouTube, you'll usually find that the content creators can sometimes have their own reasons to talking one way or another about these games. Sometimes because they are dooming, or sometimes because they have legally binding reasons. The thing is, while their input can be quite valuable, I kinda wonder what does the average person think about this game. So off I went to the Chrono Odyssey Discord to talk to some people, and here's what I found. Here's the set of questions that I asked. I will be commenting on some of their answers and adding some of my own impressions along the way. So first question, what are your general impressions about Chrono Odyssey?
Oh, for me it's like, it's fun, but the game needs like improvement, you know. But for me it's good enough, bro. It's fun.
Okay, but you were going to say that maybe the game needs polish in some other aspects?
Yeah, because like some animation are like a bit like, you know,
Oh, there's a bit
a
of
bit
janky here and there?
like, yeah, junky,
Hmm,
like
I can see that.
glitch. Yeah.
Well, first of all, as an MMO, it's lackluster. It's mediocre at best at this point in the game, which what they gave us in the closed beta test, right?
Okay, but when you say that, I assume that you have like other references to make this comparison. What other MMOs have you played?
Well, I played Star Wars: The Old Republic. I played BDO, Black Desert Online. I played Silk Road Online a lot of years.
Yeah.
And what else? A lot of other games like New World, but I
Yeah,
only
I think
played it.
New World and Video can be like good comparisons because the game's kind of similar, right?
Yeah, but I didn't like New World. It it sucked ass for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I started to hate the games where you have like you have in this game, you have two weapons and you have to swap them to fight. It's like, who the hell made that? Why? Why can't we have like one weapon just bind to the character? If I want to swap, I just swap the class.
Oh, so like maybe like have a more specialized class fantasy.
Yes,
not so much
like you
varying
had in the all the MMOs, right? You had in Star Wars, The Old Republic, you just picked the Juggernaut as a tank, and you had just three specialization in this, but you played with one weapon, so you knew what you were doing with this weapon. You didn't have to switch the weapons mid-fight or something like that because you had only 4 skills. Because more than that is too hard for most of the players. Like you have 4 skills and that's all. Because it's too hard for modern players. Yeah, it's too hard for them. It's too fucking hard for the young people.
Yeah.
I don't know. And they try to do like, nah. I don't like it. I really don't like that idea in the games. So I bounced back from the Throne and Liberty.
Oh, I also
because of
played
that.
Throne, yeah, and I can see the
Yeah,
similarities as well.
but I only played it like few days. It was nah, mate, not gonna happen. This masteries on a you have to put masteries to get the skill. In the old MMOs, you just leveled up, you got the skill, you have to learn how to use it. That's all.
Well, for an MMO, it is definitely a unique flair of it. This is definitely one of the best MMOs I've played in a long time, and I usually don't play MMOs, but the ones I do play really aren't anything like this.
I actually really enjoyed it. So this is actually my first MMO ever playing. So I've never played one before. And I've been looking for a game exactly like this. It's not 100%, I'm not going to say it's 100% of what I was looking for, but it's pretty damn close. I love how it's open world with all the dungeons and everything. It brings a lot of excitement.
One thing that I didn't mention at the beginning of the video is that somebody wanted to help me with these interviews, but they didn't have a microphone, so instead they gave me a written review, which I will read right now. Honestly, I love the beta. I'll admit I'm an optimist, so maybe I'm looking at things with rose-tinted glasses. And yeah, it's got a laundry list of beta problems. Bugs, glitches, optimization issues, weird lightning, class skills bugging out, bosses acting strangely, you name it. but the core of the game is there, and it's fantastic. I was actually pretty meh for the first couple of hours, but then it just clicked. I got addicted fast. The fact that I'm already dreading the beta's end, even though the game isn't in a good state yet, tells me everything I need to know. Deep down, despite all the problems, I really love what they are building. Alright, so one of the first things that I liked about the answers that I got was the guy that said that the game is good enough. And I think that sometimes people will overlook this as a necessary requirement for a MMO to succeed, because usually we have really high expectations of upcoming MMOs since, well, we've been starving for a good one for a while. The thing is that I feel like MMOs can get a little bit away with it when it comes to being only good enough. A standalone game has to show you something that will get you hooked, that is maybe innovating on other aspects of different games. A very good example of an RPG that is good enough, but it sadly failed to create like a lasting impression or to become like massively popular, was Battle Chasers Night War. This game is a solid RPG. It has everything that you need: progression, leveling systems, different archetypes of characters with different roles. And the combat is what you can expect of an RPG. The problem is that it is just that. It is just like generic RPG TM. The only thing that this game has to offer that is innovative or out of the norm is the art style. And sadly, the art style cannot really carry a game to be like massively popular, not at least in this type of genre. Now, I'm a sucker for this type of art style, especially because the artist was the same guy that did the aesthetic in everything Darksiders related, so that's why I played that game. But in the case of Chrono, if it has a good combat system, a good progression system, even if those are not sophisticated, complicated, super varied, super like multi-dimensional systems, it doesn't matter. It just has to be good enough. And that will keep people engaged. The other thing that I noticed was one of the guys said that it's a bad idea to have the weapon swap system, and you know what? I think he's right. One of the people that I interviewed was actually struggling with the first Chrono Gate boss, and before I interviewed them, I asked them like, hey, have you tried swapping your weapon, you know, going from bow to rapier when you get close to the target to like get some damage in and whatnot? And he said like, yeah, it's a bit complicated for me at the moment. Imagine if this person is having difficulties swapping their weapon just to rotate between one skill on one weapon and the other skill on the other weapon. If that is happening at that moment in the game, I'm afraid that person's gonna have to go through a serious self-improvement journey because this is a core mechanic of the game, right? So I kind of share that opinion. Weapon swapping, not really something that I like conceptually. I am much more of a fan of simple design that has the potential to have a lot of depth. That is usually more satisfying in the end because it offers the players the possibility of making meaningful decisions that are immediately rewarded by proper feedback from the game. So that's what I think about that. I think that the classes in Chrono could be more specialized. They could have much more polished and specific class fantasy that is tied to the single weapon that you're using, instead of trying to do everything everywhere all at once. Alright, from here on, I'm not going to show every single answer that I got, mostly because I don't want to make this video too long, so let's get into that. The Chrono devs have said that they drew inspiration from games like Chrono Trigger, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Elden Ring. Were you able to find the inspiration from those games in Chrono Odyssey?
Yeah, maybe from Elden Ring. I didn't play the two other ones, but Elden Ring and Dark Souls are my main core. Like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring. I can look at the fighting, at the combat a little bit with a... There is something in it, but it's clunky as hell at this point, right now.
Okay.
You block, and your character, the input you do doesn't represent what your character do in the game. So it's nah. Well, I don't have the problem with dying like 2, 3, 4, 10 times, maybe max. 10 times max, because I should know. But when I die because of the system,
yeah, no,
because,
definitely. Like, I don't think that the controls are maybe not as responsive as you would like them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I can
dodge roll doesn't work like it's supposed to, because sometimes you press dodge and you stay in a place,
Oh yeah, no, I can see a lot of Elden Ring and FromSoft in a lot of the boss design and just the boss fights in general. For Zelda, can see it in the exploration, in the crafting, and just the character interactions. Because if you actually sit down and read some of the NPC dialogue, it makes you feel really bad for some of the NPCs.
I haven't paid much attention, but maybe I should.
No, there's this one character in the that you can encounter. His name is Hans, and he's grieving his dead wife. And when you finish his quest, spoilers, he basically yeets himself off a cliff to join her in the afterlife.
Yikes!
Yeah.
I didn't know I was playing Witcher 3. What's going on here? All right.
Yeah, where did you find that one?
Yeah, damn. All right. Well,
I actually don't know a lot of the other ones, but when it comes to Elden Ring, I can definitely see that. So, like, it to me, it even seems a little bit more like Lord of the Rings and stuff as well. That's kind of what I was drawing it off.
as for the recent review, this is what they said. Surprisingly, the Chrono Trigger connection is the one that I'm not really seeing yet. So far in Chrono Odyssey, the time travel stuff has mostly just been a way to explain instanced content, like the time gates. Unless they do something crazy like letting our actions in the past actually change the future of the world and make it visible, I'm worried it'll just be a cool theme. I really hope I'm wrong though. As for Elden Ring and Zelda, and they got the best parts right. There's a real sense of exploration and finding new things just by wandering off. The combat definitely is Souls-like, where even trash mobs will mess you up if you don't pay attention. You cannot just face tank things unless you seriously out-level them. The AI could still use some work to be less predictable, but the vibe is definitely there. Okay, so I do agree that the responsiveness of the combat still has a small level of jank, but for the most part, again, going back to the idea that it is good enough, I think that you can manage just fine by adjusting a little bit to that jank. I don't think it's actually that bad. The fact that they are implementing mechanics such as headshots and animation cancelling with like rolls or sometimes even weaving attacks in between other skills, I think those aspects are adding a new layer of complexity that can be very cool, and it feels very good when you do those things. I think in that sense, combat is solid. As I said, I don't really pay attention to like lore or characters usually in MMOs, but I'm glad to see that some people enjoy that aspect and that the game has some cool things that players can look up to when it comes to storytelling. Lastly, I am super glad that somebody, like at least one person from all of the people that I interview, actually played Chrono Trigger, because again, as they said, I don't see the inspiration from Chrono Trigger in Chrono Odyssey. Sadly, it's just, as I said in my previous video, simply dropping the name of something doesn't mean that you're actually drawing inspiration from it with concrete mechanics or game design. Moving on, combat is usually like very important in the experience of MMOs. So, what are your thoughts on it so far?
And for me, it's good. Like the combat in this game is like very smooth and very like very fun, you know.
It can be improved. It can be improved. It's not bad. Like I said, I don't like the idea of two weapons to swapping mid-fight to do the combo. I would rather go with this skill. After that, I use that skill. That builds a combo. Yeah, sure. That works for me fine. Like it was in Age of Conan. It can be good. It looks good. So some of the skills looks good, but some are like 3 of those skills look exactly the same.
I can see that as a
I
problem
don't know,
for
that was
sure. I don't think that
lazy.
there's enough. Yeah, I don't think there's enough variety in the animations. That is true.
Yeah.
Individual guys, like just the little guys that you can run into, not too bad. Bosses can be a bit overwhelming if you don't know what you're doing. Definitely took heavy inspiration from FromSoft for their bosses, but figuring out their gimmick is half the fight.
It's actually pretty good. There's only one problem I can really see at the moment, which is when the classes can kind of solo most of this stuff. They don't really need any extra players. I feel like there could be a little bit more of a requirement to have like more players to support you, because currently you can do the support role, you can do the attack role, and you can do all those roles in that one character. Whereas I feel like you should split it up a little bit to make it so it's a little bit more even.
Oh, you mean like classes? Like it's like every class can do everything, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
It's good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's quite nice, but it can lead to making the game a little bit too overpowered.
Right. So maybe it's a bit too, or not too, but a little bit streamlined. Like, you would like to see more
Yeah.
distinctive variety. Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Valid,
yep.
absolutely. Going back to the written review, as for the combat, I love it. The concept behind the combat is great, and it just feels good to play. The classes and their kits definitely need a lot of work, but the foundation is solid. As a raider, I'm already imagining how fun it would be to be in a 10-man raid, dodging mechanics while trying to keep a proper rotation going. I know some people are complaining about only having 12 skills, but I think that's plenty. Maybe even too much. It puts the focus on timing and tactics instead of just hitting a million buttons. Of course, this all depends on whether the devs can design good raids. So, fingers crossed. Alright, so again, I had already mentioned some things about the combat, but for me, something that is like a really, really good point to mention is the fact that good combat doesn't need 100 buttons. Literally, World of Warcraft is having that problem and has had it for the longest time already, to the point that they are developing this one-button rotation thing that is going to be implemented on the game so that people don't get lost playing the game, which to me sounds crazy. Design something so that the player doesn't play your game. What's going on there? But what's happening with Warcraft is good evidence that you don't need games with so many skills. You only need depth. One of the reasons why I got hooked to the brim with Lost Ark was because that game manages to have such a good level of depth with how little buttons it requires you to press. And mind you, I played Empress Arcana. I was basically adding more buttons to my rotation on purpose, right? But the thing is, that game, every class plays with 8 buttons, 8 skills. The rest are items, right? So at most you have 15 buttons in total, 15 keys. That's enough. And you could have extremely good gameplay in Lost Ark. And that game, as much as I hate it today, it basically proved that you can have extremely good combat and depth of gameplay without having so many buttons. It just proved it right there and then. So what I see here from Chrono Odyssey is that animations need polish. There has to be some optimization to reduce jank, but there's a solid foundation. And you can say that maybe swapping the weapons, it's not really your thing. I think that comes down to preference. I don't like it very much. I did play Throne and Liberty, so I'm kind of not really like used to, because like I wouldn't say that Throne and Liberty is weapon swapping combat, but I did play Glavier in Lost Ark. And that's a class that basically you have to swap weapons, and that means that you have to use more skills then. So yeah, it's not a big deal for me, but it can be a deal breaker for some people, for sure. In MMOs, the progression systems can make or break the game. How do you feel about things like masteries or equipment coefficient or the other progression systems of the game?
Well, progression is pretty good, except the fact that some quests are annoying as hell, because
Examples?
they go. Like you have the quest where you have to go and collect like primitive ore. In order to get this primitive ore in that zone, you have to use the time portal, but it is not set anywhere.
Oh, they
in the
don't
quest.
really like, they don't point out that you
No,
should, like, okay.
no, they
Okay.
didn't point that you have to use that time portal, then fight a boss inside that area, and then there is a primitive ore there to collect.
Perfect.
Nice. Thank you for making that easier for me.
Aside from questing, when it comes to progression, in terms of like experience or levels or things like that, any thoughts?
It's gonna be good. You can do whatever you want. I like the idea that whatever you do, you get the experience for it. But I don't like the masteries on the weapons. It goes too slow to get better skills. I would say right now I'm level 17, but most of the time I'm just running around gathering mats for the gear and fighting the bosses, field bosses, some named monsters.
Would you say that like
feels
gathering and then crafting your own gear, is that rewarding on itself, or is it?
Yeah, it should be.
Because, sorry, I'm just wondering, because in many games there's this problem where you can have access to craftable gear, and it is usually worse than when you can get in dungeons or stuff like that. So it kind of misses the point in the end.
That's a good question, because it depends. If the gear won't be if you can make it easily by not sweating around, it shouldn't be as good as getting it from the dungeon or hard raid. So like I would say 8 people have to focus on this raid. So yeah,
Pretty fair
the
take.
gear from the Yeah, the gear from the dungeon where 8 people have to make a sweat for it and be good, understand the tactics or stuff like that. Like in every MMO, it should be the best gear in the game.
Do you have any comments on the concept of armor coefficient? Like in other games, this has been seen as item level or as combat power. It's just like this value that gives a score to your overall gear.
Well, yeah. No, I find combat power interesting because because there are certain places where you can't go because your combat power is too low. Certain dungeons. It's interesting, but at the same time kind of annoying. It's like, I'm in the area, I want to do this dungeon, check, oh no, my combat score is too low. So now I have to go around gathering shit.
Look, it's not too bad. I actually kind of enjoy it. There is a bit of a problem where you can, like, to me, I found it pretty quick to level up. Like once you got to level 15, it took me half a day. I was already level 15, which can be good in certain situations, but I feel like it's just going a little bit too quick because I'm pretty sure the max level would be level 40 or something like that, at least from what I've seen. So getting up those levels seems to be pretty quick in those lower ends.
Oh, I also touched on things like mastery points or combat coefficient, for example. So maybe you wanted to comment on that.
I don't find it too bad. The weapons do seem to level up pretty slow though, compared to your actual character level. And also with the recommended, they say recommended level to get into dungeons and stuff, which I get. Sure, have a recommended. But if you don't meet that recommended, you're not actually allowed in at all, which kind of annoys me. I feel like you should be able to, even if you're a low level, if it says recommended, you should be able to get in, give it a try. If you die, you die. You can try again another time once you get a higher level or whatever.
Right. Yeah, you preferred trial and error kind of style.
Yeah, because I felt like I was going to be strong enough or at least skilled enough to be able to do some of those dungeons at the lower levels, but it didn't allow me to enter them because obviously I wasn't up to the recommended.
Yeah, perfect.
Which I found pretty silly.
So the progression systems, to be fair, they don't seem to be very fleshed out. They look like placeholder progression systems. You have the whole crafting aspect that we were talking about, because I do think that, it's important that the players can identify what is going to be more rewarding in terms of where do you invest your time. In the closed beta, what we got was a space where crafting was a lot better than going to dungeons or doing PvE content in that sense. Crafting can get you much better gear that way you can get from combat or PvE content, right? And to some people that is not very fun. But I appreciate the fact that you have different routes. This is also something that they commented on. It's if I wanna, everything I do can give me experience, and everything I do can also lead me to different paths of progression. That is really, really appreciated, right? Because then you can appeal to very different types of players in that way. Masteries. I'm not a fan of masteries, or at least the way that they are being implemented here is pretty much like in Throne and Liberty. I think that masteries should be a system that is added on top of the leveling system. So leveling gives you resources to either increase your stats or to maybe learn new skills, and then masteries would be like a talent system that improves and expands on the different skills that you have. That way, when you level up, you have decisions to make every level, and when you get new mastery points, you also have some decisions to make on that layer as well. But right now, what we have is a situation where levels feel rather lackluster. You just gain a couple of stat boosts. And I think one of the most enjoyable things about MMOs is just while you level, you're trying to figure things out, and you try to think on the ways in which you can create your own build. And that, for a lot of people, including me, is really, really fun, and it's like a core aspect of the experience. So I think they should do something about that as well. Levels should give you something more than just stats. Is there any other aspects of the game that you have enjoyed?
Yeah, I hate the idea that there is no map. Give us a minimap. I fucking hate that idea with this compass. Sorry, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, okay. As a concept, do you like the idea of reducing the amount of UI in favor of immersion?
No, not in
really?
MMO.
Oh, okay.
No.
Fair.
They could make the UI adjustable to your liking, interface editor. If you don't like something,
that would be a
you
better
just turn
solution,
it.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't like it, you can just turn it off. If you don't want everything on the map or icons or mini map or something like that, If you don't want it, you can turn it off. It's great. Fine. You play
Perfect.
you.
Yeah, perfect. It's a very solid take.
At the moment, the little I know of the story, I really like it. But NPC interactions can be interesting, but for an MMO, some of the NPCs can be a little bland.
Oh,
But
for sure. Like the pilgrim guy at the beginning is so weird.
yes, no, there's definitely something going on with him.
Yeah.
Definitely scaling for bosses could be better for single player, because at the moment they're scaled for multiplayer, and trying to do them alone is a nightmare. Not story bosses, but some of the world bosses that you can just run into. They are just a pain to fight alone if you don't know what you're doing. So just maybe some tweaking on, like, taking their health pool for single players.
Or like make
Bit.
world bosses more soloable.
Yes.
All right, I can see that.
Or scale it so if you're in party, it can detect you're in a party and give you enough health pool for the party, but at the same time still be hard enough a challenge for a party, but not so frustrating that you can't do it alone.
And for you, Kanga, any
So
other?
you're basically saying like you're basically saying like player scale almost. So the more players you have in that area, or the more players you have fighting that boss, the higher the ranking of it would be, like the harder it would be.
Or simply like
Yeah,
having
something
more.
like that.
So you make it easy enough for like a single player, but then if more people start adding on to fighting that boss, then it would increase the health pool of that boss.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said,
The
I've
game
been
itself is
playing-
pretty good.
Yeah, the
but-
game itself is pretty good.
Personally, with the story, sometimes it can be a bit like when they like search for the Chrono Gate. They don't really give you much of an idea on how to do that. When you're going to gather materials, it doesn't tell you how you're meant to be gathering them or where you can actually find them. It doesn't have like a glossary, like a book saying, okay, this plant gives you this, or this rock gives you this. You just kind of have to go around clicking
And
on
figure it
random
out
things
yourself.
until it gives it to you, or until you find it somewhere else.
Mm.
And I do understand, yes, there's going to eventually be YouTube tutorials on all this stuff, but I feel like there should just be like a glossary book that you can collect different things. Like every time you pick up a material, it'll add it to the glossary, being like, okay, this material.
All right, so like onboarding tools basically for the new players.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%, for like just learning just the general idea on what's happening.
I think that's a pretty good idea. Absolutely, yeah. And again, for the person that wrote the written review, this is what they said. Exploration is great. Maybe it's just the magic of a closed beta where everything is new, but I love just going out into the world and stumbling on things like bounties, hidden solo time gates, labyrinths, or puzzles that aren't marked on the map. Finding them on your own always feels like a real accomplishment. I had this great moment where I was harvesting some redwood and a giant region boss wandered over, and I was just praying that it wouldn't get any closer because finding high tier material nodes is such a pain. But speaking of redwood, I would have hated harvesting it if I couldn't find node locations on Discord. I think I spent an hour or two trying to find tier 3 cotton before I just gave up and searched online. I get that it ties into the exploration theme, but it would be nice if you could maybe ask an NPC, hey, where does redwood grow? And get a simple text hint, you know? Like in Morrowind, where they just tell you a region, not put any marker on your map. A lot of the systems need better explanations too. Just today, I saw a bunch of people in chat confused about where the enchanting and salvaging benches were because they're separate from all the other crafting stations. I didn't know for a decent while that you could zoom in on the map and it shows you labels for the town. I personally got stuck on the first Chrono Gate for about 15 minutes. I walked into the room, saw nothing, and left. The game said I was defeated. I thought it bugged out and the boss died because I no-clipped or something. Turns out there's a door on the far side of the room that you can't even tell is a door until you walk right up to it, and then you can fight the boss. Plus, it's not just me. Many people had the same issue, so clearly they need to make things more clear. It's a beta, so it's fine, but I really hope they add better tutorials and guides for launch. Alright, so comments on these. As much as this is an unpopular opinion, I tend to like the idea of lesser UI in order to increase immersion, but the guy that was talking to me kinda convinced me that it would be a much better solution to just have a UI that you can edit and you can customize to your preferences, so that if you want more immersion, you remove some things, and if you don't want to deal with that, you stay with all your markers and your pointers, right? Or the things like scaling. I think I've seen world boss scaling in other games. I feel like it's one of those complicated conversations where if you do bosses that are soloable, how do you incentivize players to make groups? Now, obviously, MMOs have evolved to be a very weird genre, where you have this massive multiplayer online world, but you make all the experience and package it so that you can mostly solo the game. And so you go through all the progression and you go through all the different systems on your own. Why? Because people, for some reason, don't want to socialize in a game that was, like, its inception was based on player interaction. It's so weird to me, but it is the reality of MMOs today. It's a whole thing. I don't know what to do with it. I wouldn't touch the scaling too much. I think it's fine as it is. You have options for solo play in Chrono, and you have options for group play. So I think that's good enough. The person who wrote me the written review, they got a pretty good point when it comes to markers. The whole idea of making things clearer for the player. Like, 2 people mentioned this. They wanted more onboarding tools just to understand what's going on, ways to keep track on your progression, ways to keep track on the different things that you interact with, so that then you can have like a register on where to find those things again. That would be super, super cool, especially in a game that incentivizes you to gather and farm and craft so much. It's not like you're dealing with like a selection, like a small selection of materials. There's so much variety between like the different categories, from wood to stone to like plants, right? This is something that has always been like a little bit annoying to me personally. Because, you know, I played World of Warcraft and I never really complained about the variety of materials in World of Warcraft. Why? Because at the time, I just memorized them. But today, I don't have time for that. It's not like Chrono has this huge database like Wowhead or Thoughtbot at the time that players would definitely go check out, because nobody really wants to memorize these things. So I think, you know, onboarding tools, more markers, glossaries, things like that, so that the player can start registering their different interactions to remember them later. That would be great. So yeah, there you have it. The game really felt like it was undercooked. And it's basically because, allegedly, we had played a version that was a lot older than what they are supposedly going to come up with. So we know that eventually there's going to be another closed beta with the new build. And I think that closed beta is what's going to probably make or break the game. Because if it's not performing well, if the new classes are not appealing enough, if the combat is not a little bit more polished, and if the overall experience is not expanded a little bit, I don't think that Chrono has the tools to be successful long term. And that's the thing. Let's not forget that MMOs are games that are created so that they can last over time. And it's very easy to have a lot of hype and a lot of people come play your MMO, and every content creator is like covering the game, so everybody's like having like a party, right? That always happens in MMOs. And in fact, I said this on my last video as well. The launches and the openings of MMOs are usually like a blast. It doesn't matter if the game is shit. Well, I mean, it does matter a little bit. But the thing is, you can have so much fun with that phase of like discovery that is playing a new MMO, and you talk to people and you form groups and everybody's happy, trying to progress, doing stuff, just having a good time, right? I think that for me is one of my favorite things about like new MMOs coming up. But, you know, if you ask me, I don't see here the necessary elements to keep this game alive long term. So yeah, just a very silly idea of a video that I had. I wanted to put it out there because I imagine that people maybe wanted to see the opinions of other people, not just creators, you know? And so this is obviously a very small group of people that I interviewed, but I'd love to see your impressions of the closed beta. I'm kind of wondering what is the actual public opinion, because, you know, as I said at the beginning of this video, you have, when it comes to creators, you have people that are completely dooming about it, or people that are just full blast glazing it, because if not, they're gonna get in trouble, right? So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. I usually cover Monster Hunter content for the most part, but I talk about whatever piques my interest, to be honest. So I'm gonna be trying to make some videos about Chrono. Don't expect this to be the only type of content that you will see in this channel though. As always, my name is Sun, thank you for watching the video, I appreciate you all, and until next time.